Hi, this is April with the Vocal Veteran here with some important information about hearing loss claims. If you have ever, like me, tried to be service connected for hearing loss and been denied, I have some information that can help you. I became accredited last month on June 5th, and as of today, I'm up to 7 clients that I am helping either increase their disability percentages or service connect disabilities that have been denied in the past. One of the things that is most commonly denied service connection is hearing loss. Specifically, if you served 20, 30, 40 plus years ago, and then only now you are trying to get a hearing loss claim because now you have hearing loss, the VA is going to come back. More likely than not, they're going to come back at you and say, hey, listen, you've been out for a long time, so that's not on us. Although there are some studies that show delayed onset hearing loss is a very real thing. But if you don't know to come back with that argument, you might just take that denial and think that's the end of the story. It's not the end of the story. I've been working with a veteran. I'm sharing with his permission about his case. He served in the Air Force in the 60s, in the 1960s, and he has now profound hearing loss. But like many of us, didn't put in a claim for hearing loss until well after he had completed his service. The VA came back and denied him service connection, and he just accepted that because he didn't know any differently. So we've been working together now, and I looked into his service records and found something really interesting. When he was it was in the 1960s. During that time, the VA was using a different standard of measurement for hearing than they do now. So if you served before 1969 or up until 1969, then your hearing was measured by ASA standards. And now, post 1969, hearing is measured in ISO standards. I'm going to have to pause here because my dog is barking. Hold on. All right, so since 1969, hearing loss has been measured, or hearing in general has been measured with ISO standards. But prior to 1969, they used ASA standards. So those units of measure, those hearing measurements need to be converted from ASA to ISO. So in this veteran's case, he had served in the 60s. He had tried years later to put in a claim for hearing loss and was denied because the reasoning was you didn't show any hearing loss while you were in service, therefore any hearing loss now is not on us, not our fault. I was looking into his hearing records and saw that they had not converted his ASA hearing measurements to ISO hearing measurements. And when he did the conversion, he actually did show hearing loss in service. And so we were able to put in a very strong claim for them to service connect his hearing loss. That measurement was never converted, and therefore it wasn't properly adjudicated. So I want to encourage any of you who served prior to 1969, who have hearing loss, to look into that, because that's it's often overlooked and can be a way for you to get hearing loss service connected. Now, here's another point for some of us that have served since 1969. So you might be thinking, well, that's not me, so therefore there's no hope. That is not the case. So again, the VA likes to come back and tell you, you didn't show any hearing loss in service, therefore any hearing loss post-service is not on us. However, just because your hearing was within the normal limits, like within the normal range, and doesn't meet hearing loss for VA purposes, doesn't mean you didn't have threshold shifts in your hearing. So that's another argument that you can make. Maybe when you got out, within that first year, your hearing was within normal limits. However, it wasn't as good as your hearing was when you went into the service. So I think all of us, or at least any of us that had jobs that required us to wear hearing protection, had threshold shifts in our hearing while we were in service. So they measure everything when you get in, right? On your entrance exam, in those first physicals, they notate everything. And part of what they notate is your hearing. If you look at your hearing records from when you got in and then your hearing when you got out, if there is a shift, then that is an argument you can make. Okay, maybe my hearing wasn't like bad enough to get compensated for when I got out, but I did have hearing loss. I did have threshold shifts in my hearing during my service. Therefore, any hearing loss that I have experienced since then can be tied to my time in service. So there's another argument that you can make. And then I also want to point this out. If you served in the Air Force or if you had exposure to jet fuel as part of your service, you could be suffering from Central Auditory Processing Disorder, CAPD, which is different than hearing loss. So this is not something that is going to be able to be cured with hearing aids, but it is something where you are not auditory processing things that people are saying to you. So if you've ever experienced being in conversation with somebody and then all of a sudden you're like, I have no idea what you just said, like it just turned into gobbledygook, or I'm not understanding the words you're saying, it could be different than hearing loss. It could be this Central Auditory Processing Disorder. So if you had exposure to jet fuel, this is something that is a result of that, can be a result of that exposure. And then if you are diagnosed with, that's something that you can be service connected for as well. All right. So I just wanted to pass on specifically the hearing loss or the hearing records from pre-1969 to make sure if that's you get someone to help you argue that. And I must say, I have a pretty good argument already cooked up. So if you are looking for someone to help you, to represent you in a claim for challenging the denial of service connection, for hearing loss, or anything else. Hearing loss in particular, I'm very well versed in. I have several clients now, and almost all of them I'm dealing with some form of hearing loss in addition to other things on their claims. There is a link to get information on working together in the description of this video. If you are not already a subscriber, I invite you to subscribe, and thank you to the 500 people that have subscribed. It's been so exciting to pass that 500 mark, and share this with anyone that you served with who might also benefit from knowledge about how to get service connection for hearing loss. See y'all next time.